Hey everyone, I am back. Sorry about the hiatus, but combination of being sort of busy and being very lazy is pretty bad, you know. So I haven't made a video in a while, but I'm excited to play this one today. So you guys can probably tell by the title and all these giant monsters that I'm going to play some modern Goryos Vengeance in a daily event. And I played this deck a little bit before. I played it in a Grand Prix where I just like barely failed to make day 2. But I think the deck has a lot of promise, and a lot of that reason is because Goryos Vengeance is one of the cheapest combo enablers that is currently legal in Modern, and for 2 mana, it seems so underpriced, especially when there are things like Gristlebrand and Emrakul that you can be bringing back. So obviously you have to work for it, and there's a decent amount of graveyard hate, but Deathrite Shaman it kept the deck down a little bit, you know, but it was never like, you know, this deck was huge before Deathrite or anything, so I don't know. But I do feel like the fact that Deathrite is gone means that you can actually experiment with decks like this again, and the Grand Prix in Kobe that was a few weeks ago, this deck, I think, top 32 or top 64. No, it must have been top 32 because it was in the deck lists. And it looked pretty good, and I made some slight changes, but nothing too absurd or anything. So the goal is to Goryos Vengeance a fatty, and one thing to note is that Emrakul, the shuffle, is a trigger. So with the trigger on the stack, you can Goryos Vengeance back the Emrakul. So you have to, you have to be kind of careful with stuff like that, because like you're also filling your graveyard, like putting Gristlebrands there and stuff. So you don't want to like lose your Emrakul at an inopportune moment and shuffle in your entire graveyard. So you do have to be a little careful, but there are things like, you can play Faithless Looting, and then with the trigger on the stack, Goryos it. The backup plan is Through the Breach, which works pretty nicely. It is a little more expensive than I would like, but for what you're doing with this card, 5 mana is certainly pretty reasonable. This also has the added benefit of getting around a lot of the hate cards that people might play against you if you were just a strict Reanimator deck. So you get to Through the Breach away like Grafdigger's Cages and whatnot, which is pretty nice. So you have this built-in resiliency. Other than that, there's a lot of discard to slow them down, some discard effects. I like Lightning Axe a lot, just because it kills some of the stuff like Linvala and Scavenging Ooze, which could otherwise mess up either your graveyard strategy or your Gristlebrands. This also covers you against like some really fast Cranial Plating draws or Splinter Twin. So Lightning Axe is pretty nice in this deck. And the main innovation that the Japanese guy, I don't remember his name, played in the tournament, he had 4 Liliana the Veils, which I've also seen versions have this before, which is fine. You can play turn 2 off a Simian Spirit Guide, which is nice, but it kind of gives you like this backup plan where you're like sort of like a grindy rock deck where you have like these discard spells, a little removal, Liliana, and you can kind of play this longer game in case you don't draw your combo pieces, because that's kind of like the big deal breaker with this deck, is that you have a lot of 2-card combos, but maybe you don't draw the right pieces, so having a backup plan is nice, and also because Liliana tends to make both players hellbent with some Howltooth Hollows. And I was really excited about this deck just because of this card, because if you get something like a Goryos Vengeance, a Gristlebrand, and Emrakul, that's all really exciting. But you can also get something just like a Faithless Looting, which is also reasonable, where like you would just mill 2 cards, and the next turn you could flash it back and try and find whatever you needed. But for the most part, that's about it. The mana base that the guy ran had no fetch lands, 6 basic swamps, and then just like a lot of Blood Crypts and Black Cleave Cliffs. Some Graven Cairns were in there. But I wanted the fetches because I wanted to splash green for some sideboard stuff, so I still have, effectively 10 basic swamps against Blood Moon, if people want to bring in Blood Moon against me. But again, like, Blood Moon is one of those cards that like doesn't really help, because you have Through the Breach. So I don't think that's a huge concern. There is, like the life loss adds up when you're trying to combo people. You don't want to be taking a bunch of extra damage, but also at the same time, you have Gristlebrand where you want as much life as possible. So the fetch lines are certainly not perfect, and Wooded Foothills would be a nice replacement for Marsh Flats, which would allow me to play Stomping Ground over this Overgrown Tomb probably. But other than that, I have like a random Grove of the Burn Willows just because I wanted another green source, and in game one, it's basically a mountain, and having one land that doesn't make black is fine. Like the only time that comes up where it could actually punish you is if you have like a Spirit Guide and a Liliana that you could potentially play on turn 2. But if this is your second land, it is probably because you have 2 Hollowtooth Hollows maybe. But if you don't have a third land, you can't play Liliana anyway. So overall, not that big of a deal. I felt like I could get away with one kind of for free, so it's in there. And I think that's about it. Yeah, just put a big guy into play. Normally you reanimate a Gristlebrand and then just like draw 7 or draw 14, however many you need to set up a turn for next turn where you can reanimate something else and actually kill them. And then if you hit them with Emrakul, it generally kills all their permanents and then puts them at a low life total, if not outright kills them against a careless opponent. And then there have definitely been games where I've Emrakul'd someone and then lost, so that is a thing, but it should give you enough time to set up something else. So moving on to the sideboard here. The other thing about that guy's deck that I thought was really unique was that he had Quicksilver Amulet, and he had 1 main deck and I think the other 3 in the sideboard, if not just like 2 or whatever, but he was definitely going hard on that as both an additional threat and as a way to get around Graveyard Hate. So I like that a lot. I want to try these. Other than that, the green stuff that I added were Abrupt Decays and Ancient Grudges, and I think having Decay is pretty nice because it kills Cage and can kill some of the stuff that threatens you, just like Liliana out of the green-black decks is actually pretty good just because it keeps your hand size low and makes it very unlikely that you're ever going to cast Through the Breach. So if they have any sort of graveyard thing, they kind of have you on lockdown. So like Abrupt Decay stops both Liliana from attacking your hand and Liliana or something like Cage or whatever that's attacking your graveyard. Scavenging Ooze also. So that's pretty nice. It's just a nice, good catch-all. Can also just kill a Tarmogoyf if that's what's beating you down. So that's good. I like the Decays. I think it's worth the splash. Also have a couple Ancient Grudges for affinity and probably board in 1 against Birthing Pod, but other than that, not too exciting. Don't really want these against just Cages. Maybe if they have a bunch of stuff, just like Cages and Crypts for whatever reason, but like Ancient Grudge just against Cage is not very exciting because you can't flash it back. And then he had 4 Dark Blasts, and I changed that to a Dark Blast and 3 Pyroclasms. And I think that that's just a better change in general, but also I have more red sources, whereas he did not, so I think that this is, actually castable, which is good. And then the other thing he had that I thought was cool was 4 Delirium Skeins. I don't know if it's Skeins or Skeins or whatever, I don't even know if that's a real word, but this card is pretty sweet. If you're not trying to Through the Breach them, this card is great. And if you play against any resource-based combo deck like Storm, I think this card is excellent. If you play against any sort of control deck, this card is also probably pretty good. So I wanted to try this card out. So other than that, I think the sideboard answers a lot of stuff. Just like, against combo decks that might be a little bit faster than you, you have Disruption. Against creature decks that might be faster than you have Pyroclasm and Decay. Against a bunch of Graveyard Hate, you have Decay and Amulet. So I think the sideboard covers our bases pretty well. With that, let's get down to the battles.